So what is it that we are trying to solve from now till 2030? So we were having an interesting conversation just now regarding which brands you will own. Well, in the middle of all the digital conversations, conversational AI, Snapchat, and your Samsung ads, I would like to take you slightly away from this topic and talk about the real world. The first question that I would like to ask you: how many ads did you see yesterday? Anyone? 100? 1,000? 5,000? I can't hear. Yeah. 0 ads. So, okay. Whoever has seen some ads, can you name just 3 ads? Not brands that you love, but ads that you remember. So, the quiet in the room is the answer, Problem is that we don't have an advertising crisis today. What we have is a remembering crisis. A couple of, maybe half an hour back, a question was asked in this room that name your favorite advertisement, right? All the people sitting in the room, the advertisements that were named were made 20, 30 years back, right? There are so many conversations happening today, so much marketing happening today, but how many conversations do you actually remember? How many taglines do you actually remember, right? That is what it is all about. In terms of remembrance, in terms of memory, that is something which we don't really have today. And how do we solve that? That is what is the big crisis in advertising today. If you look at the last, maybe 20, 30 years, in terms of what are we trying to solve, from 1995 onwards till 2030, there are different things that we have been solving. 1995, we were talking about reach. How can we reach out to more people, right? So you had television, you had radio come in, you had multiple other ways of actually reaching out to people. Then we were talking about frequency. How many times can we reach out to our target consumers, right? So we were talking about solving the frequency problem. Then 2015, we were solving the targeting problem. And then till as recent as last year, we were talking about attribution, right? So these are the problems that we were solving. But despite that, how many brands in the last 10 years that have been created do you actually remember? How many taglines do you remember from the brands that have been created in the last 10 years? Hardly any. Because it is ultimately a sea of sameness everywhere. Each brand in each category looks the same, right? Suitcase brands, FMCG brands, skincare brands, tons of brands all talking the same communication language, all giving the same thing. So what is it that we are trying to solve from now till 2030? Can anyone tell me what is the missing link in the puzzle? Well, it is distinction. So reach, frequency, targeting, attribution, all that is fine. But what makes a brand really stand out is distinction. And how can you reach that distinction? You have to have something different, something unique, something which the consumer actually remembers. And that is what constitutes memory. And that memory only comes from distinction. You may reach the consumer hundreds of times. You may message him, you may call him, you may do so many things. But unless and until the communication is distinct and different, you are not entering the memory of the consumer. And that is where, what is important to identify, that with every new medium, ultimately it becomes a commodity. Nowadays we are talking about AI. We are talking about, maximum content. Content is being created again and again. But ultimately, this will also become a commodity at the end of the day. Because there will be so much content. The content is actually infinite, right? So how do you actually reach out to the consumer so that the consumer remembers you? That is where the whole question is, That is where the whole crisis is. So distribution is getting cheaper with every passing day. Distinction is getting more and more valuable because everything looks absolutely the same. Now I'll come to the answer, So 3 of the most important marketing reports, media reports published this year, Ernst & Young, Pitch Madison, and Dentsu, all came to the same conclusion that the only traditional medium that is growing is out of home, growing by almost 13%, right? Print is declining, television is declining, radio is declining. The only medium that is actually growing is out of home. Why? Because it gives you authority. It gives you trust. When you go into a tier 2 or tier 3 market, you may run a great digital campaign. You may run a great vernacular campaign. You may reach out to every consumer out there with a different message. But even then, that consumer will ask you the same question. Are you for real? Are you a real brand? But the moment you do a strong campaign on outdoor and you are visible in the real world, in the city, the consumer knows that you are a real brand. That is where the distinction and the impact comes from. And if you look at the size of the outdoor market, most reports peg it at about 4,700 to 4,800 crores. But the actual size of the market is much larger. Our estimate suggests that the market should be anywhere between 7,000 to 8,500 crores. And it is growing at 13%. So reaching about 10,000 crores in the next couple of years. So digital, one distribution, one reach, presence will win the distinction. And that is what we are all after. Reach is infinite, content is infinite, but ultimately the attention is finite. And to get attention, memory is priceless. So I'll quickly take you through this growth engine. Going from down to up, reach creates distribution. Presence creates distinction. And that distinction creates memory. And ultimately, memory creates demand. So this model is something which actually gives you demand and growth. I'll give you some proofs as examples of how distinction can be created using out of home.
Tata Coffee Gold, crafted for those whose love for coffee is extraordinary.
With AI-powered latte art, consumers became part of the experience, seeing their own image transformed into coffee art and tasting Tata Coffee Gold. The journey didn't end there. A QR code on the installation lets consumers instantly access and share their personalized moments across social media. This multi-sensorial experience engaged all 4 senses. Sight through anamorphic visuals, aroma through freshly brewed coffee.
Another example where people actually take out their cameras and start taking photographs. Another example where the cities and the infrastructure itself becomes media. So I would like to end my talk with 3 main points. As I said, content is infinite, attention is finite, but the distinction is priceless. So if you look at this, what are the 3 questions that we should ask ourselves, every CMO, every CEO sitting in the room? The question earlier was, are we easy to find? The second most important question is, are we impossible to ignore? Are we distinct? And the third important question is, are we easy to remember? If we are focused only on the question 1 and question 2 is a no, then question 1 will keep on getting expensive and more expensive each year. So we have to remember that. The next 20 years, will reward brands that are hard to forget. Presence is the new performance in today's AI world. I leave you with a small video. Thank you so much.